Avem pe generalul Breedlove în legătură cu noi. Good morning, I think, for you, General. It's an honor to have you with us today, and I'm sorry about the inconvenience. We couldn't establish the link with Mr. Nilsson. So I will start abruptly. I know you have a lot of things on your schedule. What are the lessons learned from the ongoing war in Ukraine and the implications for the future of Romanian, European and NATO defense? Please, sir.
So first of all, can you hear me fine?
We hear you very, very good.
Good. So thank you for having me and inviting me to do this. I'm very happy to be a part of this group, and I love to travel to Romania, but at least I could do this remotely. And it's always good and a privilege and fun to follow you, Dr. Joja, who I have worked with many times in the past, and it's been a long time since I've heard her speak in her native language. So that was good. Forgive me, please, my very casual attire. I am at university where I've lectured 5 times in the last 36 hours, and I have one more lecture to give today after this before heading home tomorrow. So with that, this is excellent timing. And when I was asked to talk to this subject, it comes right in the middle of me being a part of a larger group of work being done in our government to examine the same things. What are some of the lessons that we should take away from Ukraine? And what I have done is there are too many, and to try to decide what are most important, I might not come up with what is best for you. So the path I chose is to look at 4 very important lessons that I believe we have relearned in Ukraine. And I have them in no particular order, but I think they are all critical for my nation, for the NATO alliance, and in general for Western nations to think about as we take away from Ukraine what we might. So here are 4 that I believe we have relearned. The first one is that the capturing and maintaining of air superiority over the battlefield is absolutely critical. And not having air superiority over the battlefield makes everything else change. I believe that in the recent past, we have had a few authors who believe that they want to make the remarks that, hey, we taught Ukraine how to fight and how to do maneuver warfare, but they're not doing it. They've gone back to where they were. I don't totally agree with that, but there are elements of that ring true, and this, I believe, is the reason. You are not going to do maneuver warfare the way the West does it and tries to fight it without air superiority. So we have trained Ukraine to do something that we have not given them the tools to do. If Ukraine had been able to establish air superiority over the battlefield, if the West had given them the tools to be able to do that in a timely fashion to train and execute the mission, then I think Ukraine would do a lot more like maneuver warfare the way we think about it. So just one more time, I would say that gaining and maintaining air superiority over the battlefield is absolutely critical to fighting in the Western way. And neither side, the Russians nor the Ukrainians, have established air superiority over the battlefield. And therefore, this fight is very different than anything we have seen in the past. The second concept I would bring up that we have talked about in the past, but we have seen become very much an important part of this battlefield, is that of electronic warfare. And I believe that while we are critical of the Russians in many ways of how they've conducted this war, They have actually taught us that we are going to have to be better at electronic warfare because their electronic warfare capabilities have caused us issues. I have broken this down into essentially 3 parts of electronic warfare. I won't dwell on any of them, but let's at least touch each. Electric warfare in the attack mode. Russia has caused a lot of problems in the command and control structures, the drone operations, and other things of the West or Ukraine in this battle through very offensive-minded electronic warfare. And I believe that in the future we will see much more of this rather than it diminishing. And it is going to affect those who don't think about it more. We in the West have to determine to not only develop capabilities, but to develop tactics, techniques, and procedures that allow us to fight in this environment. As a fighter pilot, I remember decades ago when we very first brought on the Have Quick radio system, which is now all over the Western Air Forces and ground forces. And this was because our enemy had gotten very good at jamming our radio waves. Well, now in a much larger sense, our enemy is using electronic warfare to attack us and diminish our capability before we can bring it to the battlefield. And we have to be able to defend that. Denial. We see that the enemy has gotten pretty good at using GPS jamming to denying us certain weapons in certain situations. Believe me, it's not perfect. As we all know, in the last week or 10 days, Ukraine has destroyed one of their most potent GPS jamming systems with a GPS bomb. So our enemy is not perfect at this, but certainly they are affecting the way that we deliver weapons with ubiquitous GPS jamming. And we have to be better at this. We have to be better at delivering weapons who can take updates while the GPS is good and then fly maybe on very good GPS internally, or not GPS, but INS internally to the target. And these are things that we have not put great effort into in our technologic base. And I think we need to think about that because the enemy will only get better at jamming GPS systems. And then finally, electronic warfare on our behalf in the defense. One of the ways to thwart a lot of the drone attacks that we have seen on our forces, and certainly we have used on their forces, is through that jamming of command and control links and other control links that enable drones, especially the smaller drones at the tactical level. So I would say that the second lesson we've relearned is the importance of electronic warfare in the attack, in denial, and in the defense modes. The last one should, or not the last one, the next to the last one should be so obvious that we all laugh. Logistics, logistics, logistics. Amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. We have had logistics problems throughout this war. The nations that are trying to help Ukraine win are having to take a hard look at their industrial base because our industrial bases are not ready to take on the increased demand of the Ukraine fight and now also the fight in Gaza. And so logistics, not only at the operational and battlefield level and how we enable our forces is important. Oh, by the way, do you think that the Russians in the field are ready for another cold winter or not? I think logistics is a problem to both sides, but we have to not allow it to negatively affect our troops in their fight. And we have to look internally to our nations to develop that surge capability that we have all lost in the peace dividends following the fall of the wall. Finally, the subject that everybody's talking about. It's all exciting, like it's new. This thing we call multi-domain operations. I would tell you that I join other thinkers in saying that multi-domain operations is not new. In fact, I would tell you that in my country, multi-domain operations began when the Congress forced us to become a joint force. When the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines had to learn to fight together after the horrible problem we had in the Iran rescue, when our nation's leaders forced us to learn to fight joint, that was stage one in multi-domain operations. How we could bring synergies from the joint force to a fight rather than independent solution sets offered by the services. So stage one of MDO, I think, began when my nation forced itself to become truly joint in the fight. I would tell you that phase two of what I think are multi-domain operations began to happen in Iraq and then fully into Afghanistan and I'm not just preaching for my service, but when the Air Operations Center truly began to fuse effects from all of the tools that we could bring to the battlefield, I would tell you that the Air Operations Centers of today were phase two of what we are currently calling MDO, multi-domain operations. And now in phase three, we have to realize that there are a whole new set of tools. Hybrid tools, space tools, cyber tools, new ones that have not been incorporated through our current systems that now we have to bring together in that next phase of AOC or whatever we call it, where we bring all of the fused effects of the various new capabilities to fight to the battlefield. And that will truly be possibly what I would call phase three of multi-domain operations. So once again, lots we could have talked about, lots I didn't talk about. It's not because they're not important. I just chose to look at 4 of the lessons which I believe have been relearned in Ukraine, and I hope that will stimulate some questions and conversation.
Very nice points. I will translate just a little bit because we're live, sir. For my guests here today, superioritatea aeriană, război electronic, logistică și operații multiforțe. Cred că sunt niște lecții foarte clare. Good points, General, but I want to get back to you. As you probably know, the Romanian army has a shopping list. And on this shopping list, a lot of items are made in USA, obviously. You are our greatest ally. Like Patriot missiles, like F-16 planes. We already have some, even though they weren't bought from the United States. We will bring much more in the near future. Also, we are discussing about Abrams tanks, about F-35 planes, and so on. But the US Army, as I read, has also weapons produced in different European countries. Different weapons, not the most important ones, maybe. How do you think Romania should proceed from this point of view to achieve its goals, to enable the army, the navy, to have everything that it needs, but in the same time to maintain good relationship with all NATO allies, not only with the most important one, the United States?
So thank you. This is a very important question. I would start from the following, that as Romania moves forward in this process of reimagining and or incorporating more new and Western technology, the goal, we clearly understand, and frankly, I'm an American, we love that Romania looks to us in many cases, but the important part is that the first decision to be made is interoperability. When we were talking about an aircraft for Ukraine, I stopped saying the F-16 because even though I thought the F-16 was a magnificent answer, people knew I flew the F-16 for literally 24 years, and they said, aha, this is the general selling American kit. And what I ended up using in my conversations for most audiences was fourth plus generation technology. The idea is that interoperability is a must. It's not an option. And then the next step beyond interoperability is interchangeability. And that was the beauty of the F-16 in Europe. Soon, the F-16 and the F-35 in Europe. So many people will be flying them that you have interchangeability of parts, repair. You can land at someone else's base. We used to have really good agreements on this, such that you could get work done quickly and get your airplane relaunched instead of having to send your maintenance there, et cetera, et cetera. So interoperability is a must. Interchangeability is a next good step if you can afford it and want to do that. But building lasting relationships through interoperability outside of American products is still a viable and important part of what we do. I would also offer that when we do this interoperability and even maybe interchangeability, as important as that physical capability is the relationships we're building with each other. If you buy another NATO product that is interoperable, you have established a 30 or 40-year relationship with that nation. And in some cases, you're doing it with the United States. That is a 30 or 40-year relationship if you buy an American tank or an American radar for your warship or an American aircraft. And so those relationships are important. But more important even sometimes in the relationships is, as we have this interoperability and interchangeability, is we build, learn, and employ standardized tactics, techniques, and procedures that reach across these interoperability and interchangeability bridges to cement our forces together in how they fight.
Okay, one last one, General. As you know, the Black Sea has a different status than other seas because of the Montreal Convention. We are not able to bring all the NATO allies in the Black Sea to cover us. So we need our fleet, our own fleet. And as you probably know, there is a long overdue planned program for corvettes and modernization of the British frigates. It didn't go along with politicians. The contract it's up in the air, and now we're talking about buying some submarines. I don't know if this can replace the other need. And I have here with me one of the most important commandants of the Romanian Navy. But getting back, what do you think we should do in this geopolitical context? Because we have drones that are dropping on our territory by mistake, of course. It's not an attack. We have to say that every time. We have some mines at the Black Sea, so we need different things. How do you think we should proceed? Because in the Black Sea, we are forced by the international law to cover ourselves, not with ally support. So what do you think we should do with
that? So don't be disappointed with me. I'm not going to tell Romania how to do its business. Romania has some incredible, great leaders. And I always mention my good friend who eclipsed me and went on to bigger and better things, General Nico Chuka, who I spend so much time with and talking about some of these these issues, etc. But I will offer some thoughts. One is that I think your concerns are absolutely appropriate. We cannot allow the Black Sea to be a Russian lake. And we in NATO have to have capability in the Black Sea. I think we can take some lessons from Ukraine in that they have established some pretty good effects on the Black Sea without any ships. They're doing it all from shore and etc. So whatever solution we have in the future for NATO, I think has to have a naval component. I do believe that. But it also has to have a strong land-based component that helps it have that 24/7 permanent presence, permanent reach, permanent vision for a common operating procedure on the water, etc. So a blend of both is very important. Romania is a very capable, technically capable nation. I do believe that great kit on your ships, your corvettes, your frigates is important, and that kit needs to be completely compatible with what NATO does to draw information from NATO and to provide information to NATO as we build the more common operating procedure. And I do believe that a great nation like Romania needs lethal capability afloat, in order to project power into the Black Sea as opposed to back away from power. So I spoke out both sides of my mouth. I think this has to have a land component and it has to have a maritime component on, and if you choose below the water, I wouldn't drive that, but you need a lethal way to project power into the Black Sea.
Thank you for your insights, General Breedlove. I have to say that everyone here with us, Romanian defense officials, security experts, had listened to you very carefully. I hope we will continue this dialogue in the future. Thank you so much.